All right, YouTube. It's time to talk about a couple topics that all roll into one. And that is the alternative media, journalism as the fourth estate, and apologists. What brings this on is a sparring event that I was involved in recently where someone was questioning whether or not President Obama really used any immigration bans. And one of the things that they said was, even if he did, why is it bad, right? Why is everything that Obama did bad? And I didn't even really bother to address that part of the question. I just presented some facts so that other people reading the comments could go educate themselves on the truth of the matter. Because the bottom line is, I'm not here to be a Trump apologist. And that's sort of the problem, is you have people who are Obama apologists. It doesn't matter what he did, all the disastrous decisions that he made. And you're starting to see that now under the Trump presidency too, where people want to avoid some of the mistakes that he's making in terms of executive decisions. And one of those would be funding the CIA black ops sites. This isn't going to help the United States. It isn't going to help the people of this country. It's not going to make America great in any way. So that's sort of what brought me into wanting to make this video, is that the purpose of journalists is to be sort of the check for the other three branches of government. Yeah, the news is there to inform you about current events and sports and that kind of stuff. But investigative journalism has a really important role in American society and Western society, in that it keeps politicians in check. Otherwise, they would just go to their press conference and whitewash everything as, what we're doing is great and everything is going according to plan and there's nothing to see here, move along, citizen. And so journalists really have an incredibly important role to play by calling into question that narrative that comes out of the federal government especially. You'll notice that your local news is a little more apt to tell the truth and do some actual investigative reporting. But it's not very far-reaching, right? It's pretty local concerns for the most part. Whereas the rise of big cable national news network style reporting has sort of devolved into nothing more than a mouthpiece for the federal government. And you saw this, really drastically under W. Bush, with weapons of mass destruction and all that nonsense. Even CNN sort of coddled, and catered to him in terms of promoting the war in Iraq, when the whole premise for it was, that was presented to the public in terms of weapons of mass destruction and that kind of thing, was all nonsense and lies, and it would have been easily provable had the media actually been doing its job. And that was even worse under Obama. They totally refused to criticize Obama as a president in any way for anything. And there's, probably a number of reasons to that. But I think maybe the biggest one is that their role became something else as they were sort of purchased by the federal government to become a mouthpiece. Their role has devolved into becoming the mouthpiece that promotes these wedge issues that's creating a divide among the people. And I can't really speak to why that is, other than the desire among sort of the upper crust of society to create a global currency and a global government and sort of keep everyone under the thumb of this global ruling class. And so the alternative media has a really important role and a really unique opportunity to address this situation and make some changes. And you know, in a lot of ways, they're stepping up to the plate there. But you'll also see that a lot of people on the so-called alt-right have become Trump apologists in the same way that the mainstream Mockingbird legacy media was just an Obama apologist. And even people who claim to be so-called progressives or left-leaning individuals, you know, who sort of, you know, people who say they were Bernie supporters or Jill Stein supporters or whatever, will report on the corruption of Hillary Clinton and, you know, the corruption that was within the DNC, and say things like, well, I'm not a Trump supporter, but, you know, here's what I think about what's going on with Hillary or what's going on in the DNC and da-da-da, but don't really address the actual issues coming out of the Trump presidency either. And so ultimately they're no better than a Trump apologist. And you kind of see this definitely from groups like InfoWars. You know, a lot of the stuff that InfoWars presents has really good source documents to, you know, to back up some of their claims. But about 50% of it is, you know, interviews with people who have wild claims that can't be corroborated. And so it's a little more than infotainment, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being entertained in that way. It's really no different than going to the movies or anything like that. But so it's really important for the alternative media to not fall into that same trap, which is why I'm making YouTube videos. Realize I'm not getting a ton of views right now, and that doesn't bother me. I'm just trying to be part of the snowball, which is growing, that is making the legacy Mockingbird media obsolete, because that's what needs to happen. I'm not too worried about being a small voice among the crowd right now, because the more people that get involved, it becomes a roar, and it will change history, and we will change the future. So I just wanted to sort of make this video to say that the alternative media has a really important place in our society right now. And I think that it's important to try and get information from as many sources as possible, and to take it upon yourself to try and validate as much as you can in terms of the news that you're getting from anywhere. Because ultimately there's going to be a lot of opinion that's really just put out there instead of actual facts. So as I try to grow this channel and make more videos, I'm going to focus in some ways on trying to report on the underreported facts, which is why I made that video about Obama's immigration policies. There aren't enough people talking about it. Likewise, there aren't enough people talking about President Trump, you know, continuing to fund the CIA black sites. Instead, you have reporters like the Acosta from CNN who want to continually talk about the immigration ban, which is, you know, if CNN really wanted to put the screws to President Trump, they would be talking about this CIA issue. They would be talking about the Dakota Access Pipeline. They would be talking about issues that are more pressing but instead their role, the people who are funding them and telling them what their role is to create the wedge in American society that creates the chaos that lends itself towards promoting this this global currency and this global government that keeps us all serfs. And that's really sort of the end game here, is that modern citizens of all Western cultures are viewed by the elites as serfs. And you can, there's probably people who disagree with that, and that's okay. But that's how I see it going down. And that's why I think alternative media is so important, because there's a chance here to challenge that narrative and to give people alternative viewpoints and opinions, and also to give people a source of information that would otherwise get swept under the rug. Thanks for listening.